Now, if I can figure out how to stop the recording, it would be great. Today, we are talking to someone who calls himself just an ordinary guy. Robert White might be ordinary, but he has done extraordinary things, including having taught over 1 million students in his companies with high impact experiential trainings, which we talk about a lot. He lived abroad in Japan, Hong Kong, China for over 20 years. He's back in the US, and I'm so glad he is, because we had a really interesting conversation that, like usual, covered many topics. But I know that you are going to learn something from this conversation. And when you do, I invite you to share it with someone you care about. All right, see you on the other side, and be sure to like and comment and subscribe. And I'll see you on the other side of the opening credit. Hi, I'm Tamara Zoner. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. Come in, sit down, and grab a cup of love. Welcome, Robert White, to Spirit Cafe. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad to have you. Why don't we begin by you sharing a little bit about what you do, who you are, which matters to me more than what you do, but tell us, who is Robert White?
Wow, so you broadened that just enough to make it challenging, but thank you for inviting me here. It's wonderful to be with you and with your audience. I love the subject. I kind of tend to use the word joy as what I'm aiming toward personally and recommending to others. And that one of the things that's in my book is that I look at joy as a field that you can plant other things in, but that is the foundation, and that happiness is one of the things you can plant in your field of joy. But that gets kind of complicated to probably talk about that for half an hour. Look, I'm a father of 8. Unfortunately, I lost a child last year, so I don't know quite how to talk about that. Still kind of working through it, not just in language, but in feelings. And I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, and in the field of high impact experiential learning. So I've founded and led 2 companies with 1,300,000 graduates. So that's my claim to fame. That's been my joy. That's been a source of a space where I can contribute. Like doing that. I like being a friend, close friend to a small circle, but of people that are very important to me. And see what else. Oh, I'm sometimes undisciplined and lazy. So we can go down that track. I can tell you everything that's wrong with me. It doesn't have much of a purpose, but I can do it. I think something that I heard years ago from the late Buckminster Fuller. I had read his books. I'd become a fanboy, which is unusual for me, but it had happened. And he came to Tokyo while I was living there and spoke at the Tokyo American Club. I think I bought the first ticket. I sat in the front row. I mean, a really fanboy type behavior. And it was one of those situations where the introduction could have been longer than the speech. You know, this man invented the geodesic dome. He invented the forerunner to the minivan. He's just brilliant as an inventor, as a philosopher, as a hero, as a model. And so the long introduction, and this very frail, he was in his 80s at that time, man comes up very slowly to the stage. And I will never forget his first words. He said, thank you for the lovely introduction. The most special thing about me is that I'm an ordinary man. And I think in introducing myself, I'd like to aspire to being able to say that authentically, because I think I am an ordinary man in many ways. That lack of discipline or that laziness or that wanting everything to happen immediately. I'm really impatient at times. All of that. But I was fortunate in that in my late 20s, I went to one of the early human potential movement trainings, and my life changed for the better. So I'm an ordinary person that learned about the power of becoming clear on your purpose, on your vision, on your values, and then living in integrity with them. And so I'm an example of kind of the average person who learned a few things that really served me well and seemed to serve other people well.
I love that. You just gave me so much meat to dig into. And I really appreciate that awareness of being an ordinary person who has achieved a lot. And what that tells me right away, and what it could tell anyone listening, is that it's possible for anyone. It's in the decisions that we make and the choices we make. If we're lazy and we'd rather just hang out on the couch than take action, but we do take action anyway. That's the difference between a high achiever and just the ordinary person who doesn't achieve what they dream of. They just keep dreaming instead of doing, right?
Well, it's pretty popular. Getting into the drama of life seems to be a popular escape recently.
Yes, I agree. An escape. I've been talking about this week because I have a tendency to get frustrated with people who just continuously take in other information that does nothing to move them forward in their lives. Just watching movies or shows that are entertaining but not helping them move forward into their dreams. So what is I like this high impact experiential phrase that you used in describing what you've done and in your business. What's the experiential part? Can we dig into that? And then we'll come back around to so many of the other things that you said.
Tamara, I have 40 years of being asked that question. And so I'm really practiced with an answer. I'm not sure it's the answer. One way to talk about it is this. You get to be, I'm going to guess, 6, 7, 8 years old, and the kids in your neighborhood are riding bikes, and you want to ride a bike, or maybe you have an older sibling that can ride a bike. And if you think about that, it isn't automatic that you just hop on a bike. You go through a real process that includes the word fear, because you look at this, it's these two skinny wheels. You're used to kind of being able to handle life on 2 flat feet, but not on 2 skinny wheels. And also, your brother comes home or your sister comes home and brags about the scrape on their arm, and it's exciting adventure when they went over the handlebars and all that kind of stuff. So walking up to that first bike, and hopefully you have a coach, maybe a parent or an older sibling or a friend, and getting on that bike is you have to confront the fear. And then you get on the bike and you're a little bit shaky at first, and then you can ride. Now, the interesting thing is that 10 years later, if you have not ridden a bike for 10 years, 10 years later, you can get on a bike and ride. You might be a little bit shaky at first, but once that experience takes place, once it is a muscle memory, and once those pathways, those neural pathways are rewired, bike riding becomes something that you've got it for the rest of your life. That's experiential learning. And there's a book published by someone here in Colorado that I don't recommend, but the title's pretty good. And the title is, You Don't Learn to Ride a Bike from a Book. And, you could add to that, or from a video, or from motivational talk. You've got to get on the bike and take the risk of having your elbows and knees battered and beaten and scraped and bleeding. But once you have that experience, it's there. You can use other experiences as in the same metaphor. The birth of a baby, that's not something you ever forget, ever. And the list goes on and on of experiences. So what we do in our training programs is a series of carefully crafted experiences that even though they're in a training room and done in a safe way, with a lot of iteration, a lot of experience on our side and learning how to do them perfectly, that gives you an opportunity to find out what's real for you instead of what you profess to believe. Uh, so, and I'll give one more example. If we look around at all of the people around us today, on the road, at work, in a supermarket, and we did a quick survey of those people and said, is it better to live your life from a win-win perspective or win-lose? What do you think the answer would be for the majority of those people?
What would be better? I think win-win.
Of course, because you're a noble and pure and wonderful person. And that may be just virtue signaling, and I'll tell you why. And I'm not talking about you personally, Tamara. I'm trying to be polite here. But look, we have an exercise we've done with over 1 million people. And in the exercise, it's a little game you play. And what you find out about the vast majority of people that say, I believe win-win, mutual benefit for all is a good thing, the majority of them vote win-lose in the game. I'm talking about 90% plus, that we are programmed from our earliest days to play win-lose.
Right.
And it's in the language, it's in the media, it's in the entertainment, it's everywhere. So we play the game, and it's kind of fun. And then suddenly you'll start to see the lights go on right near the end of the game, where people start going, oh, wait a minute, I did what my deepest beliefs told me to do. And the end result of that is I just played a game where I was instructed, and I was told I would be rewarded if I played win-win. And I played win-lose, along with everyone else.
Right, because that competitive
that stuff
streak is so ingrained in us.
You notice I used a very sophisticated term. That stuff, you know. And we won't turn this into a long lecture on beliefs and their power over us, and also on our ability to change them. But I mean, that's life. And then in a training environment, we confront people about that. We hold the mirror up to their behavior. We have a spy or a number of spies in the back of the room taking notes on specifically what they said to guide the game in the direction of win-lose. And we reflect that back to them, lovingly, but clearly and firmly. And then people have a choice. They have the choice of either continuing on with that automatic behavior or taking a look at it, where it came from, and how to remove the negative energy on it. So that would be an example of an exercise in many of our trainings. I have a zillion stories. We could go on forever about that.
That's a really beautiful way to get people to really look at what's driving them, because so many people aren't quite aware that it's the subconscious mind and all that programming and those beliefs, which is something I could definitely talk about for half an hour, that is driving the bus, and not what they consciously think that they want and who they want to be, but who they are is all of those past experiences built up in their brains. And that's what, and I'm thinking as you're talking, like I would definitely play the win-lose. When you put me in a game situation where there's competitiveness, yeah, that old streak kicks in. But if I went in, obviously it depends on the scenario, right? When I play a game with my kids, it's win-win even if it's win-lose, because I know that they're learning.
Yes.
I always tell them, I will never let you win, because then you won't learn, but I will let you learn how to beat me.
I'll coach you on some strategy and commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, something that I thought of just yesterday is part of my life story is that I'm a typical entrepreneur. I worked 7 days a week, and it cost me a couple of marriages and a lot of stuff, but it also brought a lot of success. So I retired at 46, and I moved to Aspen, Colorado, And I moved there out of my friendship with the late John Denver, the singer, activist, composer. He wore lots of hats, and John encouraged me to live down the street from him. So I moved to Aspen. And but what that came from was that when I returned to the U.S. at 46, determined to have my life include more joy and more satisfaction as opposed to success. Part of that was that one of my team members came to me and said, there's this nonprofit called WinStar that was founded by John Denver, and it's a mess. I'm active as a volunteer, and I'm telling you it's a mess. Would you be willing to help them? And we have used John Denver's music in our trainings for years, illegally, truth be told. And I had seen him live once in Tokyo at the Budokan. He sold out the Budokan, which is 17,000 seats, 6 times in 5 days, sold out. And we were using his music in our training, so I was curious. And at that time, we were broke all the time, typical entrepreneurial story. But so I bought the cheapest ticket. I'm up so high that there was an oxygen deprivation kind of issue. You look like a raisin down there. It was so far away. But I was impressed, and I love the music. And also, his concerts were 2 to 2.5 hours with no break.
Wow.
And no lights, no lasers, no dancing girls. He just walks up to the microphone and sings. And it was an incredible experience, but okay, great. And then when I published my book, One World, One People, I sent him a copy. I thought, this book resonates with what I think I know of him. I'll send him a copy. And I did. I didn't hear anything from him. I later learned that he was getting 7,000 pieces of mail a month.
Oh, wow.
So mine was just another piece. So when this trainer came to me and said, will you help? I said, yeah, absolutely. And that led to my attending a board meeting where I did, in fact, hold the mirror up to some of their behaviors that were not very positive. Mm-hmm. And then went back to John's home with him. And that started a friendship that lasted until he died. And so we donated a training to the WinStar staff and board as part of our intervention to kind of get things straightened out. And in that training, as in many of the corporate trainings that we've done over the years, there's a lot of truth telling that takes place during the training. So there's the possibility of people feeling a little bruised from the truth, and or at least people's perception of them, accurate or not accurate. So we do an exercise where we take all the chairs out of the room, Tamara. This is an example of an experience that you can't get from a book. Okay. All the chairs out of the room, you find a partner to stand in front of, and then you're instructed that you can only say one of 2 things. So if you're the speaking person, say person A, and you go first, you'd say, Tamara, the gift I see in you is. So I could say, that dazzling smile. You're very quick to smile, by the way. I'm sure other people tell you that. And you're quite bright. You've got above average intelligence. So I might say that. I say, the gift I see in you is this. And you have a commitment to your children. I would add that. So the only thing you can say in response is, thank you. You can't justify, you can't deflect, you can't run away and hide from their experience of you. Whether it's true or not, you say thank you. Yes. Or whether you experience it as true or not.
Thank you for that clarification. I love that. Yes.
All right. And then you reverse roles and you would say, Robert, the gift I see in you is you're handsome and charming and stuff like that. Absolutely. And then you go find another partner and do it again. So there were 32 people in the room. So, you have 31 experiences of that. And at the end of the exercise, and remember, I'm just back in the US about 6 months. I know very few people in the U.S. actually. I'd lived abroad for 23 years. I've been gone a long time, and I'm trying to kind of find my footing and a little bit more sensitive to how I'm showing up in my home country. Uh, there's a movie made for business people about people that live abroad for a long time and come home. It's called Welcome Home, Stranger.
Yeah.
So I'm going through that.
Yep.
And I'm in the room with one of my heroes, John Denver. And I'm busy running the exercise, and then it's wrapping up. And I suddenly realized John Denver is laying on the floor sobbing.
Oh.
This is not good for my reputation. you know. and so I didn't know what to do. And so I laid down on the floor with him and asked him what's going on. And what I learned was that 31 people gave him feedback, saw the gift that they saw in him. Not one of them mentioned his music. Not one. So I said, well, what did they tell you? And his first words were, they told me I'm a good man. I said, what did that include? He said, well, that I'm committed to my family and that I'm committed to creating a sustainable future for all of us, that I really am dedicated to peace building. And he goes, and that I put my money where my mouth is, and all of that kind of stuff. And he said, I knew I was a good musician. I'm shortening this, but he said, I knew I'm a good musician. I didn't know I was a good man.
Oh, wow.
And the coda to that story is that he said there on laying on the floor, he said, I'm going to write a song about this. And in the relationship between men, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, women don't need any kind of an excuse to relate. They're
Right.
good at it and they just do it. Men, the way we communicate is, first of all, physically. If you watch men that are greeting another man, you just notice the number of times there's a punch on the shoulder or a slap on the cheek or
Yeah.
something physical. And then secondly is an insult. So if you haven't seen your buddy for a long time, hi, Fred, I haven't seen you for a while. You're gotten fat. That's common. That's how we relate. So I moved to Aspen. I joined the board of WinStar at John's request. We were seeing a lot of each other. We were doing things, traveling together with our families, being friends. And every time I saw him, I would say, where's my song? And I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I mean, that was ridiculous. But that was my little insult thing. And he kept saying, it's coming, it's coming. And 2 years later, he called me, said, come up to my house. And I said, I'm sorry, John, I'm busy. I've got some things I'm committed to. And he said, no, really, come up to my house. And I said, John, I'm not one of your big fans who jumps, every time you say jump. I really am busy. He said, come up to my house or you will regret it the rest of your life. Pretty good close. So I went up to his house and he met me at the door in ragged t-shirt and shorts, dragging his guitar behind him like a little kid, walked me into the kitchen and sang the song. And you can go on YouTube and find it. It's called The Gift You Are.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, I love that. Okay.
And but that came up yesterday because somebody who's a friend of mine who's going through some really rough times called me. We share the experience of losing an adult child. And so we've been kind of supporting each other. And she had a really rough couple of days and listened to that song. And she was talking about how it reminded her to stop beating herself up about her daughter's death. But I recommend the song highly if you're ever feeling a little bit down and you want to be reminded of the gift you are to your family, to your work, to the world. It's a lovely song. And you get to hear my daughters sing back up. So.
Oh, cool! That's so cool.
That's even when I'm thousands of miles away, I can play it and have them with me for a moment. But being girls, what do you think they say about that? Oh, my voice wasn't that good at that time,
You know, it's that constant criticism. You know, when you were talking about how men greet each other, no woman ever would say to another woman, "Oh, look at you, you've gotten fat." There
No,
would be a slap and a
we
cat fight right there.
we are delightfully different, men
It
and
is
women.
delightful. I do love the differences. And I get that because I actually did background vocals for my partner's band, and it's okay, right? But even me, who I've done so much work on loving myself and really clearing out the limiting language and the inner critic, and but she's there, she lurks, and every so often she pops in and goes, "That was all right, but could have been better."
There's a cartoon. Talking about a cartoon is ridiculous, of course, but here goes. I believe this ran in the New Yorker, and I'm not sure, and unfortunately I didn't keep it. But it shows it's a two-panel cartoon, left panel, right panel, and in the left panel is a picture of a woman looking into a mirror, so you can see her three-quarters back, and you can see her, but she's seeing in the mirror.
Mhm.
And she's a lovely woman, and she looks in the mirror and she sees this woman with an outsized posterior. The image she sees is not accurate.
Right.
It's all of her faults.
Yes.
The right hand panel is the guy. He's balding. He's got a beer belly, uh, and wearing a T-shirt that doesn't cover the belly. And he's looking in the mirror and he sees uh, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
Perfect muscles, a head full of hair, the whole. And that's one of the differences that I've noticed in our trainings between men and women. Women are tend to be self-critical to the nth degree, and men live in this little fantasy world that we look better than we actually look.
It is the differences that make the world interesting, isn't it? Ah, so much goodness. I want to talk a little bit about the blog article of yours that I saw where it's titled Discipline Can Breed Happiness. And it sounds like you've gone from ordinary to disciplined in your life, which I have too. I have those same desires to just lay around and do nothing, especially when the sun shines in Michigan, where I'm recording from, because it isn't always happening here. And so as soon as the sun comes out and the temperature goes up, I just want to sit on the deck and just be in the sunshine with a nice sparkling something. And and yet I have these goals and these dreams and these drives that move me forward. And I know what it feels like to not be disciplined and how that feels for me, even if it's exercise or eating. And I know what it feels like to be disciplined and take action even when I don't feel like it, which is kind of my definition of discipline. Tell me a little bit about your definition of discipline and why it's so important for success and the broader term of success, not just what most of the world looks at success as, but what personal success really means.
Well, the simple way for me to talk about it is that discipline is a tool. You can pick up a tool and use it, and you can use that tool for good or for evil. A hammer can be used as a weapon,
Right.
or it can be used to build a home. And so discipline is a tool that you can choose to use or not use. But what it does is that I'll jump off this just for a moment, and that is to say that over the years, many people come to me and say, well, I have this idea and I want to be able to communicate it more powerfully, and I want to engage people. And I went to your training and you get people so engaged. All of your trainers are marvelous at that. So teach me how to do it. And for years I said, I basically said no, that it takes 6 months to a year to train a trainer before they can lead one training.
Mm-hmm.
And getting up in front of 250, 300 people, you get challenged. You better be ready for that challenge. And so I can't teach that to you, my friend, even though I love you and I support you. So that was my excuse for years. That became inadequate at some point to me. And I thought, I have, if people are asking me for help, I need to figure out a way to help them. And one of the ways that I do it is I tell people, this is not all hearts and flowers. When you get up in front of a group or one-on-one with your teenage child, what you're dealing with is the enemy. Now, I don't mean that they as a human being are the enemy. They're a precious gift from God and to be honored and respected. But what you're dealing with is their image. You're dealing with their belief structure of who they think they are, who they think you are, what they think about time, what they think about money, what they think about success, what they think about failure. They have this incredibly complex web of beliefs, and we refer to it as the belief system. It's your operating system. And discipline is a tool to defeat that enemy, that part of you that doesn't want to change. And that is not something to feel bad about. That is a natural and normal human quality. We want to be safe. And any kind of change interferes with our safety. We all know that. Even if we're not super conscious of it, just a little bit of thought, and we know that any kind of change in how we walk, how we talk, how we listen, any kind of change is threatening because we've grown to be comfortable with the way we are. And it took us some time to develop that on our likes, our dislikes, our personalities. You know, on all of those tests, I'm an extreme introvert. You know, I mentioned that, you know, I have this daughter that says, Dad, you're just a book salesman now. Yeah. You know, kind of semi-retired, and you're a book salesman. Well, first of all, she's right. But, you know, my tendency is to get behind a book and read or listen to music or spend that time on the deck looking at the trees or looking out my window here at the Rockies. You know, that's where I lean to. But does that bring me closer to what I really want to create in my life? No. You know, your term, you got to get into action. And the tool is discipline, learning that there are some patterns that you're in now. You need to look at those patterns and say, is that serving me and my purpose in life or not? If it is, keep doing it. I mean, it's great. If it doesn't serve you and the people you love, it's time to take it on. It's time for some discipline to learn. You know, when my book came out and I was interviewed a lot, people would, you know, the PR company sends the book out. And somebody reads it, usually not the interviewer, some grunt, you know, some intern, and they come up with 5 questions. One of them is always snarky, by the way. Okay. And in one of those interviews, this guy, it was a morning radio show, and he said, well, what makes your book any different than the thousands of personal development books out there? You know, that kind of snarky question. And I don't know to this day, Tamara, I don't know. Maybe I was just tired. You know, I'm running around the country doing this stuff, and you know, the 5 questions are mostly the same, and the snarky questions are mostly the same. You know, and maybe I was bored, maybe I was tired, maybe I was just half asleep. I don't know. He said, isn't it just derivative? That was the word he used. And I said, yes, it is. Now remember, I'm on the show to sell books, right? I said, yes, it is. I said, you know, I would change the answer, but at that time what I said was that the only 2 original books are the Holy Bible and Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's book, and which I still recommend. It's a great book, timeless book. And but that's what I said. I said all others are derivative, including mine. And then I went, oh, that may have been the truth, but that wasn't very disciplined for my role right here, which is to sell books. I do think, you know, and I mean, my book has become a bestseller because people see an approach that is different and potentially valuable. It's really based on our experience of working with over 1 million people over the years.
I
And
wonder too,
there,
did you see
it's
an uptick in book sales when you said that? Because that is the kind of thing that would make me curious, is to see the author be really real and say, you know what? Yeah, there are a million, like Napoleon's Hill book has been rewritten 1,000, maybe a million times, right? With different people on different, slightly different perspectives. But ultimately, people take that book and they repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, which is okay because, you know, different people are attracted to different people. And so somebody is reading information that they don't even know is from Napoleon Hill unless the author is giving him credit. So for me, I would have been like, okay, now I want to read that book.
well, maybe I've made up for my error years ago because maybe I sold one more book. But look, continually doing the same thing and expecting a different result, Einstein defined that as one definition of insanity, and we're all prone to it. We all are. I know I am. I'm still working on a bunch of stuff in my life and learning.
Yeah, that's the goal. I think, well, I hope that we continue to learn, until we've learned everything we can, and then maybe we get a do-over with another life, or maybe we just get to go, it depends on what you believe, but you get to go wherever you go and utilize what you hopefully learned in this human experience, and then share it in some form. Like, I believe that some people go on and maybe they do another life, and some people go on and they get to be the whispers, that
the Canadian psychologist that wrote a book recently that's fabulous about his rules for life, Jordan Peterson. He's constantly asked about God, and I love. His answer has changed over the years, but in the early days, he would say, "I don't know." They'd say, "Do you believe in God?" Because he's a very rational guy, and do you believe in God? And he would answer, "I don't know." He said, but interimly, it's useful to believe in God. And that's my way of saying that I'm not sure about the Buddhist point of view about karma. I really am not sure. And there's no way to prove it, right?
Right.
All faith-based things, it's difficult to prove it. But I do kind of have this thing in the back of my mind that says I don't want to come back as a sea slug. You know,
Might as well do your best for whatever religion your or way of thinking, because Buddhism isn't, I mean, it's a religion, it's canned into religions, but it's more a way of being. But that's kind of my view too. It's, you might as well do the right thing and give yourself the best outcome, because none of us know until we know.
I want to, whatever God's purpose is for me, I'd like to the greatest degree possible, actualize it. So
Yeah.
that's that's a little personal mantra.
I love that. That's a good mantra. And I have really had fun talking to you. I think we could go on for a while. And yet I have this time construct. What is the name of the book again? Can you tell us one more time?
Living an Extraordinary Life.
Living an Extraordinary Life. And where do we find it? And where do we find you if people are like, man?
Two ways. If you like a signed copy, my website is therobertwhite.com. And if you look under resources, you'll find my book and a whole bunch of other things. Okay. therobertwhite.com. And of course, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all those things. By the way, I got a big compliment last week. Somebody copied my title.
Ooh.
So if you go on Amazon and search Living an Extraordinary Life, honest to God, somebody named their book exactly the same.
Wow.
And a different subtitle, but exactly the same. And actually, another guy kind of copied it, but it was okay with me. And he died yesterday, actually. Dr. Charles Stanley, Reverend Charles Stanley, died yesterday, unfortunately, but in his 90s. Incredible man of faith. I'm not big on religion, but this was a guy who lived what he was teaching, and I admire him greatly. So he named his book Living the Extraordinary Life. But that caused us to get into communication. I've never met him personally, but I got to email back and forth with him, one phone call, which was really a treat. But this one, they just went ahead and copied the title 100%. So,
Well, it must mean you're doing something right and people want to be like you.
I prefer to believe that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hopefully he discovers that it's great to be like himself.
And Tamara, I mentioned this earlier to you in our private time, but I like to get into a relationship with people. And one way to do that, and I like to, at this point in my life, I like to contribute. At therobertwhite.com, there's an opportunity for you to sign up for my weekly email. It's called An Extraordinary Minute. It's an idea from someone other than me, and my comments on that idea that you can read in 1 minute or less. That's the promise.
Oh, I love that.
And it's easy to unsubscribe if it becomes clutter to your inbox. But you hit reply to that email at any time. I read every one of them, and I reply to most of them. So that's a way to be in touch. And included in your subscription is you'll get a download of a 28-page PDF that talks about success, what I've learned over the last 40 years, what I've learned from that 1,300,000 people.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I will make sure all of that is in the show notes so people can just click and be sent there. Make it easy. And I thank you so much for your time, Robert. It's been a really cool conversation and I've had a really nice time with you. So thank you so much.
It was a wonderful experience. Thank you. Thank you to you for creating the space.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, Spirit Cafeers, please click some of those links and as well, of course, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who could use some perking up in their daily life with conversations that soothe the soul and inspire and educate as they entertain. And I will talk to you again next week. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Spirit Cafe. Please leave all comments on our Spirit Cafe Facebook page or in the comments below our YouTube videos.